like that old pub in that weird part of town you discovered by accident, then forgot about for ages, then rediscovered years later with a group of mates saying, I know this place, it's great. Come on, I'll get them in, before striding up to the bar and looking into the eyes of the friendly landlord who takes one look at you and says, fuck off, you're barred.
Just once in a decade, in a lifetime maybe, the world of entertainment is disrupted and utterly elated by something entirely new.
Good Lord.
And now for something completely different.
It's the Guerilla Cricket Grumpy Old Man podcast. Hello, gents. How are you?
Well, okay. Not too bad.
It's been a while since we did the last one.
It has indeed.
We always seem to start by saying it's been a while, don't we? That and sort of tortuous metaphors and analogies.
Keep them waiting. That's what I say.
Well, I'm just lazy. You know,
there's been a clamour. There's been a Franz clamour.
Topical reference for you 1970s ski fans.
You do realise that our last episode, I think, is now top of our all-time downloaded podcast ever.
And so it should be. I mean, to be fair, it's not up against very much. So,
well, you know, it's streaming ahead, and every time we do one, we get bigger and bigger viewing figures, listening figures, whatever.
Did you say streaming ahead?
Streaming ahead, yes. Dum bum bum bum.
Well, gents, what's gone on in the world of cricket since we last met?
The bloody PL. God, it's dull. But we've been covering some of it.
Apparently so, yes. And that's about as much as I know about what's going on in the IPL. I was just thinking of the IPL the other day, and I realised I have no idea how many teams are in the competition.
8.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Has it always been 8?
Well, next year it's going up to 10, and apparently there's a mega auction next year.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Which I didn't know about, but I have been informed that basically some of the teams, after every 3 years, they kind of refresh it so that all the teams that sort of have players that they hold on to year and year can no longer hold on to them. You can only hold on to like 3 players instead of 8 or 9 or whatever. And then everyone else goes back in the auction, plus they're getting another 2 teams in. So there's going to be an inordinate number of games next year. And funny enough, yay, the same thing happens pretty much every day. It's in the UAE, which actually, you know, watching it for terms of the World T20 could be a low-scoring World T20. I mean, the pitches are pretty slow, low, and dull, man.
Mumbai scored 235 or something the other day, didn't they?
Yeah.
Where was that?
That's kind of a freak. I don't know where that was. That might have been. I think Sharjah was last year. Sharjah last year was the big scoring ground because it's got really short boundaries. But they've relayed the pitch for the World Cup, and it's just really fucking low and slow. And considering it's got really short boundaries, a lot of teams don't seem to be managed to get more than about 130 and 140.
Get Mark Elam and Ian Austin in.
Well, exactly. That kind
Chris
of
Harris.
Chris Harris. Come on, let's do a World Dob 11.
Well, those four, yeah. Well, who's your batting man?
Well, Ronnie Irani,
Graham Gooch.
Yes.
Ronnie Irani.
Yes.
Mudassar Nazar. He bowled an excellent bit of dob.
Yeah. Mohammed Hafiz.
Jeff Boycott.
Sort of does. Well, I mean, England did go into a World Cup final in 1979 with their 5th bowler being Gooch, Boycott and Larkins.
Between them.
Yeah. They went for about 80, which was a huge number in those days, off 12 overs. But nowadays they'd be saying, yeah, he's done right. He's done a good job. They've done a good job.
Well, exactly.
Wayne Larkins is a character. When I do these little cricket quizzes that I do from time to time, and it's, you know, name the England squads from, I don't know, early 80s, whatever. And I always think of Larkins. And I think I've overrepresented him in my memory, like the number of games he played for England. He probably played no more than 15, 20 test matches, something like that?
Something like that. But they had this idea of him that he was a great player of fast bowling, and they picked him for these, these suicide assessments, taking him to the West Indies and saying, exactly. He's not going to back down. Yeah, but he wasn't that good. I mean, he was a bit of a tonker. He was way ahead of. He was probably 25 years ahead of his time in that respect. He was an opener who threw the bat at the ball.
If I remember right, didn't Wayne Larkin have a sort of wavy-haired mullet type thing going on?
Yeah, and attached to match.
Yeah, it was more of a wavy. It was more like the Judge Robin Smith's
Yeah.
wavy
Yeah, I don't think
head.
it was mullet. Well, it was kind of long but wavy hair.
Yeah,
Like it
well,
had been
it was
crimped.
the 70s.
Yeah, like it had a little bit of a perm.
Yeah, I think it was more like a demi-wave on
Yeah.
Larkins, because I think he had grown it to shoulder length. Very much a hairstyle that I favour among cricketers, and indeed human beings in general.
Oh no, as I said over when Colin de Grandhomme has the greatest mullet in cricket.
It's gone.
What?
Yeah, he's shaved it off a couple of weeks
What
ago,
about
mate.
Oh my
Wayne
God!
Parnell?
His power would have gone. Wayne Parnell had quite a good mullet. Yeah.
David Visa.
So when we're talking about hirsute aspects, you can't see us, but the bear is looking more and more like the Maharishi, as if he's off to his retreat and he's got the Beatles coming round, because his beard is let's face it, it's white, isn't it?
I'm enjoying that.
It's good.
But it's sort of dark at the sides, and I definitely think you're off for, you've got an ashram somewhere with a harem of young nubile followers who not only give you all their whatever they've got to give you, but they give you money as well.
It's
not a bad job being a yogi, is it?
No.
Hello to all our new Indian listeners.
Exactly. The wife was just showing me a story actually. That was in the metro that some basically young pretty thing had taken a ex-Deloitte worker. It was basically she was his sugar baby and he was her sugar daddy. And she fleeced him for £2.5 million.
I'm sure he had a good time.
I don't know. She was off in Dubai a lot of the time, it seems, spending his cash. I don't know if he was getting anything out of that, but
all parties happy in that transaction.
Yeah, it's a game as old as time.
Well, I'm guessing no, Grubby, because actually it made it into the press. So probably not. He was feeling probably a little bit hard done by, would be my bet.
So you've upgraded to the Metro from the Mail Online, have you? Fair?
No. The wife showed me the story. No, the man online is monitoring the enemy.
That's your normal organ, your go-to organ, isn't it?
My go-to organ is, of course, the sensible Guardian.
Right, but not for sharing stories on this.
No, God, no. I just find some weird shit. I've got a good one for today. Actually, it's very bear-centric, and it makes me happy.
Well, the other thing that's happened in the world of cricket is that England have named a squad for their tour of Australia, which it looks like we're all pleased to say is going ahead as planned. There may be some minor changes to the scheduling of the test matches, but it looks like it's going ahead, which is, I think, we're all very pleased about. And England have named pretty much a squad that I think we would have expected them to select, which disappoints me greatly. But perhaps gents, you'd like to weigh in first before I wind up the invective.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I mean, it's just there's no change in the. I mean, I kind of think that look, if Hasib Hamid has come back, he's had a couple of tests and he looked okay, right? But you can't really say much more than that because we don't see much of him before that, have we? Because but we all, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of praying that he ends up being as good as I first thought he was and has that kind of X factor thing as being an opener. I guess, Burns has to be the other opener. He's not been that bad. Had a couple of decent scores in the summer, but didn't get a ton. Number 3 was a problem, but they've taken bloody Crawley and they put him in a squad and he looks hopeless. Dawid Malan had a good tour in last time in Australia before getting dropped by Ed Smith and looked pretty good in the summer. So, it certainly looks a better bet than Crawley at number 3 and then also got Root at 4. Then it comes the problem. You've still got bloody Bairstow aside at 5 and can't they find anyone else?
Well, unsurprisingly, and I think I've heard Grubby allude to this again. I don't think Hamid has actually got any chance of being a top quality test player. I don't think he's good enough. I think we were seduced by a sort of an innings and a half that he played. It's going to be 6 years ago by the end of this Ashes tour in India. This is a very different. I don't think he's got the game. I don't think. I understand why they selected him, and there was nobody else who was saying, oh, you must select me, and we can turn around and say, well, they should have picked X, Y, Z instead of me, and I see why they've taken him. I just think there's a very high chance that he won't score 1,000 runs in his entire Test career, and I don't know how many he's on. He's probably on about 400 at the minute. So I'm a bit wary of Hamid. Obviously, I've mentioned it maybe once or twice before. The wicket-keeping situation is a farce. Folkes is back and he's fit. He's not only a far superior wicketkeeper to both Buttler and certainly Bairstow, who's much worse than Buttler. He's even worse than Buttler. But he's going to score runs. He would score runs as well. I just don't see what the hell they're doing. Not even taking him on the squad the squad is ridiculous.
We've had this row before, but I think keeper. Yeah, I know. I mean, I have a different view to that. I kind of agree with folks being about keeper. Maybe Buttler won't score runs, but does have the X factor, supposedly. And
you should pull it out of the fucking gold envelope then, shouldn't he?
Well, see, the thing is, keepers standing back. There's a lot of keepers who can stand back better than standing up, and I don't think I hope. I mean, the one thing about Moeen Ali retiring is it kind of gets rid of that bloody position where they go, oh well, we want Moeen because he can bat.
Oh, they'll still say it. You give them 6 months, they'll still be saying it.
Yeah, but he's not coming back. So now, if you want a spinner, you've got to go either Leach or I don't know why they're taking Best, to be honest. I mean, apparently he got his best ever figures in the last game of the season for Yorkshire, but still, I mean, he doesn't look like an international bowler to me. They got a lot of right-handers, and although obviously Nathan Lyon plays for Australia, I'd be more tempted to take Parkinson, even though Gary will bang on about it forever. I would be more tempted to take someone like him than Dom Bess if you're going to have a second spinner. I don't think we'll ever use 2 spinners in Australia. Possibly at Sydney. There's always that possibly at Sydney.
That's 20 years out of date, Bear.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's brought up every time we play there, yeah. And then obviously Bairstow at 5. I think Pope probably is going to be 6. That's good. I mean, I'd be tempted to put Wokes in at 6 and probably move Pope up to 5 and have him as an all-rounder to give you maybe more batting options, more bowling options, if you're not going to have Stokes.
Well, let me give you my 2 penneth on some of the names mentioned there. Hasib Hamid will get eaten alive in Australia by their quicks, and it may break him. I think, like we've all mentioned here, we all thought or hoped that we were seeing some sort of second boycott coming. He was even christened the baby boycott, wasn't he, back in 2016? And he accompanied Cook, and we thought, we solved our opening partnership crisis. And he got injured. Then he was in the most horrendous run of form. And then, as you mentioned, Fred, it's no surprise he was picked again. But I think the England setup was just willing him to show a glimpse of form, which he did, to be fair, early season of the county championship. And I was really hopeful him coming back that he'd show us something. And what I saw was a man so ill at ease with his game, so ill at ease with his own polished, in inverted commas, technique. And so, and he somehow managed, despite having grown lots of hair everywhere on his head and face, to look even younger than he did as a fresh-faced 19-year-old back in India. And with all the attendant sort of nervousness around his body language, I just can't see any other result on those pitches with their seam attack, which is pretty good, despite what you might think of the rest of the team, other than abject failure for Hamid. That sounds terribly pessimistic, but I think it's rooted in a certain degree of evidence.
But we know why they picked him, and there is nobody else banging the door down in the selectorial parlance.
I mean, the one thing you can say about Hamid is he's got a bloody offside game, yeah, unlike fucking Sibley, who just
the runs count the same wherever you hit them.
Right? Yeah, they do, but Sibley was just it's horrible to watch.
Horrible to watch. Smith's horrible to watch. Graham Smith was horrible to watch. Lots of people will be horrible to watch. Doesn't mean they can't score runs. They kept saying, well, Sibley got himself out. Well, in a sense, that is much more. It's a good thing for a batsman to be getting yourself out than to be being got out.
Yeah, but not getting yourself out.
You've got a chance of ironing that out.
Yeah, but not getting yourself out in the same way every time. I mean, he just closes the face too quickly. He gets a leading edge to mid wicket.
Yeah.
Did that
but
twice
even when he was doing that, he was sort of batting time and getting to 20s and 30s, which is damn useful.
What he was picked to do. He was taking time out. He was knocking the shine off the new ball.
And you don't want to beat
to an extent.
To an
extent. Given the paucity of options, he can probably consider himself. He's not on the tour, is he?
No.
He can consider himself a little unlucky not to be in that squad.
He can. He had chances, and he didn't score big runs.
Listen,
you can't argue with that. The question is, how likely is he going to score runs in the future? And I would think that he's more likely to score runs in Australia than Hamid. I'm agreeing with you, Grubby. But but I can see why they dropped Sibley, and I can see why they picked Hamid. I'm going to make another slightly more dubious point, perhaps in Gary's terms. I'm assuming both of you, Grubby, I'm sure, maybe Bear as well. Have you ever captained teams?
Once or twice, yeah.
Well, what I always used to think when I was captaining for a few years, was that you wanted to take a bowler off before he had the shit over. Any captain in the world can say, "Oh no, you've gone for 14 in that over, and you bowled a couple of wides. I'm going to take you off." That's easy. The trick is to try and guess in advance when the bloke's going to have his shit over and get him off before that. You can never prove that it would have been terrible, but you're doing your best for your team. The same is true with selection. You want to. Sounds cruel, I know. You want to drop players before they have their terrible tour. And I have a feeling this is going to be a tour too far for Stuart Broad. I really don't see much chance of him having a successful tour of Australia. And I have a feeling, obviously he's got the track record and he's got the numbers behind him. What we've seen of him over the last year or two, I think his time is drawing to a close, unlike Anderson, who's older than him and still better than him. And I think Australia is a harsh mistress. And I think this could be a tour too far for him.
One waltz too many.
Well, yeah. Summer last year was pretty good, I thought, actually.
Well, yeah, it's a very different bowling in England than bowling in Australia.
But we all know the bowling's not the issue anyway.
Yeah. Well, it isn't, but that doesn't mean you don't want to play your best team. And I have a feeling he wouldn't be in your best team. I mean, if he's there, they're going to want to select him. Well, even though they didn't a couple of years ago in West Indies, they dropped him for the first Test match. He came back and he bowled unbelievably well in the second Test match,
which he's done a few times. Did that?
Which he has done. He has done a few
when he was
times.
rotated out at the start of the series last year and was quite vocal about how he felt about that.
And came back very strong.
Terrific.
He may have a point, but you have to try and preempt if you're the selectors. It's not just saying, well, we're waiting for you to be really shit. We're going to we want you to have a shit tour, then we got an excuse to drop you. You've got to think these things out in advance, haven't you?
Well, they've got already made. Well, I think that the stick-ons have got to be. I mean, I think Ollie Robinson will be pretty successful in Australia. Yeah. He's not the quickest, true, but he's very accurate and he's got that extraordinary height and bounce. I think he'll be in the squad from the start. I mean, will they get 5 tests out of Woody? Probably not. They might get 3 out of him.
100%.
Will they get 5 out of Jimmy?
No, probably not. Which just means you've got Wokes, Broad. I mean, the first 3 tests are back to back, aren't they?
Well, also whisper it, but Robinson is almost the first name on the team sheet.
Yeah, totally.
When you're looking at the bowling now.
Yeah. I just. That's my gut feeling as far as Broad's concerned. I'm very fond of him as a cricketer. I think he talks brilliantly about the game.
One of the best, yeah.
And you can't argue with his track record. As I say, you've got to get them out of there before they have the shit scene. The other thing, you touched on it briefly, was the spin bowling. I agree with Bear. I don't see there's any point in taking Bess at all. I can't see a way that which they can pick him in a team, and you're talking about this before the start of a series.
Well, I presume they've got him because he can bat a bit.
This will be the next thing. This will be the next thing. The batting's failing, so Leach is overlooked, and how can we fuck him over this time? We'll get Bess in.
I have to say, I'm not a huge sport fan of Leach. I know his record is reasonable. I'm judging on what I see of the way he bowls, and he can do a containing job in the spinner, and he has picked up wickets. Can't argue with that. I don't think he's a particularly great bowler.
He's the best you've got at the moment.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Well, yes, but if you're talking about a second spinner, that was an absolute gimme of an opportunity to take along a flyer. They did it once before with Mason Crane. It wasn't highly successful, but I don't see why on earth you would take Dom Bess.
No, I don't either.
What's the point? If there was a test starting tomorrow, could you pick him?
No.
So what's he doing there?
Could you pick Jack Leach? He's not played for God knows how long.
Well, that's true.
Oh God, yeah, no. Presumably he didn't play much over the summer either, did he? Because he was always fucking sitting on the bench.
He's in the squad.
Yeah.
He's been very shabbily treated.
Well,
I have to say, I was a bit I was a bit sceptical about, because there's been quite a lot of noise around Parkinson this last season, and it's only swelled and grown over the months. And I was a bit sort of, I could see he's got the game for limited overs cricket. He's fantastic in that. I just wondered whether in the Test match arena he might struggle. We'll never know until he gets there. And then I checked out his first class figures actually, which are very really impressive.
They are
average of 23 or something like that.
It would be a flyer, Grabby, but why would you not take a flyer over Bess, which is a disaster waiting to happen?
Exactly. I mean, my thoughts on Parkinson's, he probably bowls too slow through the air for Test match cricket against the best of the best, because he only bowls 46 miles an hour.
Well, he won't be bowling against the best of the best.
Well, that's very true.
Smith and Labuschagne, Australia have got their problems, and they were overturned by a good India team, but an India team that was weak last winter and who got smashed and who turned the series round and beat them pretty comfortably in the end. Australia have got their problems. I just don't see. I wouldn't have taken 5 players of this squad. I understand why they have, with the exception of Bess, but I think there's problems ahead. And you say, well, who would you pick instead? I mean, take for example Bairstow or Bess. I would say a random player. Mr. X is likely to do better than those players.
Well, I mean, there are 2 things I will say about Crawley and Bairstow going to Australia, and Lawrence. Lawrence, I don't think will get much play, to be honest, if Pope stays fit. Although he might do if Bairstow falls out of form. But I mean, falls
around his front pad, you mean?
Well, that
and ways to review as well, with his wide-eyed reviewing.
The one thing about these guys is they are hitters of the ball. And if the ball comes on better and there's a good bit of bounce and true pace in the pitch, they might actually find themselves more at home in Australia. I mean, maybe this is dreaming, but they might find themselves more at home in Australian conditions than at home.
I can certainly see that with Crawley. He's had an absolute shocker over the last 12 months in international cricket. Well, he's averaging 11 or something and still gets picked for the tour. I mean, it's weird, but he's clearly got an immense amount of talent. His technique last year, look at his technique last year. Don't become a bad player overnight. He could thrive on those pitches. I can see that. I mean, people have been talking him in the same breath as Michael Vaughan in 2002, for example. Well, if anyone has a series that good, then we don't half a chance, aren't we? So I can sort of see that it might suit Crawley. He's going to be under an enormous amount of pressure, of course, coming off the back of a terrible domestic summer. Johnny Bairstow, forgive me for repeating myself for the umpteenth time on this subject, shouldn't be anywhere near the fucking Test team. He's neither the temperament nor the technique for Test match cricket.
Score 600 runs now.
And good. Prove me wrong.
It'll be
I love him. I love him to death. He's one of the most talented players of our this generation. Not my generation, but the generation
that ended about 5 years ago.
Yeah. And he's terrific, along with Jason Roy at the top of the order for us in 50 and 20 over cricket. But as a Test match player, he's proved time and time again that he's not fit for the job. And the reason that he keeps re-emerging in the Test team, much to my annoyance, is A, the paucity of options, as discussed, and B, because he is so talented, he can look very good in any form of the game, and he strikes the ball very cleanly and crisply. But
I think Gary got it right last summer. Basically, if you keep bowling straight at him, he is going to miss a straight one. He does it. He does it all the time.
Yeah.
And that is not a Test, number 5. And like I'm saying, you could ask, who am I going to replace all these people that I'm going to drop with? But say you're picking a young batsman who's not expected to get into side, and something happens, a couple of guys get injured or whatever, and he does go in. Is he going to do automatically so far worse than Johnny Bairstow as it not being worth taking the risk on whoever that guy is? And the answer is no. And the same is true with Bess. And certainly true of Folkes. Is Folkes going to do worse with the gloves and with the bat than Butler or Bairstow? Absolutely not.
Yeah, no. But the culture of this selection
safety
panel or whatever is go with what you know. You don't look to the counties for who's the next big thing coming through. You go back to Johnny Bairstow when you're looking for
yeah.
and then people like me go, "What? We've tried him 18 times. What the
Okay,
fuck?"
but
exactly.
that's an idea for the first 11. But you have to then take players number 14, 15, 16, and 17 in the squad as flyers rather than tried and fails.
But I don't believe we've got the sort of pipeline, and we can talk endlessly about.
Well, we don't know. I mean, people always come along from nothing because.
You don't know unless you try them, do you?
Well,
exactly.
I mean, exactly. Would you rather take some bloke, Carlson or Bohannon or whoever it is, take some name out of the counties? Is he going to do worse than Bairstow? I don't think he is. And there's a damn chance that he could do a lot side better, and make himself a fixture in the team.
Yeah, see, I'd have liked to see who's that tall guy who played in the second string side, the Durham fast bowler, South African or something, another Safa. Can't remember.
Oh, you mean the reserve team that beat Pakistan?
Was it Bryson Cars?
Bryson Cars, yeah.
See, I like the look of him, and I think he's strong, he's tall, bowls quick, probably quite good in Australia. Sprays it a little bit, but it's probably.
Well, it's very different bowling 10 overs every 4 days.
Yeah, but he plays
and having to bowl 20 overs in a day, and then come back the next morning and have to bowl another 10 overs before the next day.
But we had that with Ori Robinson. He does play first class cricket. He's in the county side, so he plays 4-day cricket.
Robinson has had the best figures of any bowler, I think, over the last 3 years in the county championship. He's certainly, he's earned his spurs. But bowling is different, especially bowling in England, because they come into something which is comfortable for them. He's going to find it difficult in Australia. I mean, he's got the physical tools. He's a bit like Glenn McGrath in an odd way in terms of his height and his bounce and just a little bit of movement. You don't need to bowl at express pace to get wickets in Australia. Australian wickets, again, have changed a lot.
Like Hazelwood as well.
Yeah, they have. They're not as quick as bounces.
Australia, Melbourne is an absolute feather bed. Sydney is not the Turner it was. Perth is a new stadium. So all these ingrained opinions we have about what we're expecting the wickets to be like are a little bit out of date.
Well, last time they were bloody awful, weren't they? I mean, the Melbourne wicket in the last
Melbourne is one of the worst you've ever seen.
But they're all drop-ins now, aren't they? Pretty much. I mean, every one of them is a drop-in. So
I don't know.
Apart from
groundsman,
I think even Adelaide is now a drop-in, and Adelaide was the last one standing, I think. And I think even now that's a drop-in.
Right. And Perth, is this? Have they played at the new venue? They played one. Did they play last year? Not sure.
I don't think they played a test there, but they might have played something. Right. I presume they played, Big Bash or whatever. Whoopee. But I mean, literally, they had the AFL final there, didn't they? Because Messi was there 2 weeks ago or whatever.
Yes, yeah, he was.
Hello, Messi.
Hello, Messi.
If you're listening.
He's always listening.
Hello, Messi, our listeners.
But I mean, so presumably that.
You want to say hi to my mum as well while we're at it?
Yeah. Barbara.
Hello, Barbara.
Hello, Barbara.
Thanks, chaps.
Told
you, Mum. Where's the tenner?
And what I want to know is Smith in form? Because last couple of times I've seen Smith, he's been unbelievable, but he didn't have a great series against the.
Well, they've only played 4 tests in about the last 18 months. So who's in form? There's no such thing as form when you're not playing.
I guess so. I mean, he hasn't been picked much in the IPL, to be fair. He's been sort of overlooked there, which is kind of weird. But so I don't know.
Nice to have there as a talisman, isn't he?
Well, I don't think they care over there, do they?
Apparently, he's one of the worst watchers, and he hates watching. That's why he bats so long, because he doesn't like watching.
Well, it'd be nice if he had a bad series. I'd like to get him early a couple of times early. I mean, this is the thing with a series like this, though. It's who gets in. If you have a good first test and you kind of feel in touch, tends to stretch out throughout the series. You have a bad
not
first
really
test.
Sometimes, because 5 tests is a long time. And,
it is.
By the 4th test, you're thinking, remember, we thought he was really good in the first test, and he hasn't scored a run since, or taken a wicket.
True. That's true. But generally, if you start bad, it just gets worse, doesn't it? Especially with
hopefully,
England.
we will do another podcast before the start of the series, so we can have a full blown preview of the series close to when it happens. This was more or less just dealing with the squad, and I think it's fair to say, am I right to say that we're all disappointed with the names?
Not massively. I mean, it's kind of what I expected, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that's an indictment in itself. It's sort of what we'd expected, and that in itself is disappointing.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm afraid they picked the team we thought they were going to. That's what we're sort of saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Grubby, I think we need to turn over to
a new leaf.
Other people have called the highlight of the segment. I wouldn't say that myself, but it's your
Grubby's been scouring Twitter while sitting on the shitter to find a fact about which he can speak. Has to be unique, but interested cannot be. It's the boring cricket tweet of the week.
Yes, welcome to the Boring Cricket Tweet of the Week segment. Now, this week, it's a bit of a hodgepodge, chaps, a little bit of a hodgepodge. I'll just pull the curtain back on the workings a little bit, if you don't mind. We've had a few forays into the world of Welsh cricket, haven't we?
Yes.
Once or twice. And so I'm going to fess up here to starting my search this week by putting Wales cricket or Welsh cricket into Twitter. I thought I'd narrow it down.
Don't tamper with
with
gold.
the formula, but I did those things. Now, I didn't really get any boring tweets from that. In fact, I got a couple of quite interesting ones, so I may as well just bring those to you.
We've played the wrong jingle.
David Battersby, I thought, oh, this is going to be dull, because it was something to do with the Welsh Cricket Museum website. So I thought that's going to be dull. But actually, what he's written is, my article on Gilbert Jessup in Wales has now been uploaded onto the Welsh Cricket Museum website. And I thought, that sounds worth reading.
Well, I'd read that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a failure in the sense that that wasn't a boring cricket tweet. But thank you, David Battersby, for that.
That's in bottom place in Boring Cricket Tweet of the Week.
And as if to continue that theme, my other one that I got when I did the Wales cricket search was indeed from the Museum of Welsh Cricket. Not telling you about the article I've just highlighted, but it's saying our guests on this week's podcast are Tony Cotty and David Brayley, who talk about the book they wrote together. There's only two Tony Cottys. So presumably the Tony Cotty from the podcast is the one who used to play for Glamorgan.
Yes, middle order batsman, quite short. And not
like,
the West Ham diminutive number 9.
That's the only Tony Cotty I know.
Well, there are two, aren't there? We just told you which one they are.
He was one of the worst managers of Barnet FC I think they've ever had, and that is a really difficult, and that's a tough competition, because Barnet have had about 40 managers in the last 10 years. And only two Tony Cotty. That's a good name for a book. I think probably the name is better than the actual book. I would guess.
Anyway, a couple of shout outs for our friends in all of Wales cricket there.
Hello.
You've ruined it. Now, so boring cricket tweet of the week. Yeah, a bit of a hodgepodge, even outside of that. The first one is from none other than Pat Cummins.
Oh, yeah.
Now, who am I to deny a new father his joy at bringing he and his partner bringing a new life into the world? So he says, gorgeous boy, Albie Boston Cummins, beyond besotted. Fine, fine.
ABC?
ABC to start with, yeah. But then attached to that,
1, 2, 3.
Attached to that is a 90-second film that he's made, presumably he's made it, which runs from the positive pregnancy test that he and his wife get right up to
where's
the
this
moment
going?
after the birth.
Yeah, exactly. We don't get to see the birth. God damn it.
Via his wife.
He could have started before the pregnancy test, to be fair.
Via his wife running around in active wear, I believe it's called, doing various exercises during the pregnancy. I just found the whole thing rather sick-making and thought I'd put it forward. Maybe not boring as such, but sick-making. Anyway, that's number one.
I think he's trying to get a gig with the Australian Broadcasting Corporation for his kid.
Albie Boston Cummins. So that's it. Number two, just to keep it fair, in the spirit of Ash's, false wars before the actual thing starts. This one is from Chris Wokes, but it's via the Sky Sports Cricket Twitter feed. So this is a quote from Chris Wokes, and it goes, I wasn't thinking of retiring from that format, but I thought they might have moved on from going back to me. talking about is it re-inclusion in the T20 squad.
They
I
might
love
have
that.
moved on from going back to me.
Yeah.
Oh, sort your tenses out, mate.
That's very English too.
Yeah.
God, you set that as an exam for English for foreign language students, and they'd be scratching their heads.
So that's another offering.
I'm sure boring tweet of the week. You just got to look at the IPL, haven't you? Surely.
You'll notice that nary a mention in here, but there is quite an obvious one coming up. Wait, not this one though. This is from Peter Miller. Peter Miller actually tweeted out earlier this week saying, with his opinion, most boring cricket chat. Number 1, teas. Number 2, test match selection. Number 3, the future of county cricket.
Peter Miller.
So there's that.
Well,
I think that's a bit like going down the rabbit hole, isn't it? It's talking about boring cricket tweets. So
I'm just here to put them in front of you. You know,
tough one.
You're there to judge. Shall I read the one that I sent on the WhatsApp? I got bored of writing them down, so instead of doing that, I wrote them on our little WhatsApp thing. So this is from a guy called Kuma on Twitter, and you know, sometimes when I search cricket on Twitter and you get stuff about the insect cricket, and that can be quite funny in its own right. Well, this one almost does a full lap. You'll see what I mean. So Kuma, whose full sort of screen name is at King Nerd Kuma. I may have included the word nerd in that particular search. So Kuma says, I swear the same cricket has been outside my window for over a month making noise 24/7. I respect the energy, but holy fuck, I don't think it even takes any lunch breaks. Bringing it right back to the game of cricket.
Whoa.
Oh, what?
Well, if he would have said tea, then Peter Miller would have got extremely annoyed because he would have got bored about it. But that could be a metaphor on the IPL, to be fair, couldn't it?
Who knows what was going through King Nerd Kuma's head. But anyway, here's the winner. And it's from...
well, you decide, do you?
From what?
You decide who's the winner. And we
Did
don't
I
have a
say
vote.
that?
Yeah, you said here's the winner.
Did I? Oh, you saw through my thinly veiled subliminal musings. So this is from Sudhir Kumar Chowdhury. This was written a couple of days back saying, saddest day. All of these words in the whole tweet are capitalized, by the way, for some reason. Saddest day for Sachin fans. Crying emoji. 10/10/2013 announces test retirement. Retweet if you cried when you got this news. You may retired from cricket, but not from our hearts.
Oh, I knew what was coming.
Yes, that's an absolute fucking winner. Absolute winner. You were right. Subliminal, you were correct.
God.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Never going to give up, are they? He's not coming
Actually,
back.
well, it's hands down a winner. So, we're going to excuse your subliminal vote rigging that you were doing there, Robbie.
Sometimes that's just the truth.
I actually had an idea for a segment, but in my usual way, I decided not to follow up on it because it involved some sort of small work, which would be, I'll tell you where I got this from, actually. A friend of, somebody on Twitter, basically, during the lockdown, he started, people were tweeting all kinds of crap because they were sitting at home and didn't have much to do. And he started finding interesting people from history, who were just lost to people other than experts or incidents that happens in history. And he would just tweet them in about, 5, 6, 7 tweets. Interesting stories about people or things or places or, things that happened in wars or whatever. And he kept this up for a few months and has got a book out of it, actually. Has published a book called Lessons from History. The guy's name is Alex Dean. And I was sort of following them, and they were quite interesting in a modest way.
Can you give us an example or two of the sorts of people or subjects that he was tweeting about, or was that?
Well, they're people who did extraordinary feats of bizarre things in war sometimes, who were just mad bravery. There was odd incidents. I've actually got the book here.
So the answer to my question, can you think of any examples?
Well, I can't.
No.
Well, if I said Adrian Carlton de Wyatt, would that mean anything to you? Not necessarily.
Well, it might if you attach it to some of those facts that you'd also...
If you look, yeah, but you'd have to read the book, wouldn't you?
You might be honest.
After a while, he said, well, if you've got any interesting things, just send me them, and I will put them into tweet form and tweet them out. If you've got any interesting, and I sent him a couple, and he did tweet them out about the New York theatre riots of the 1840s, when half a dead sheep was thrown on stage.
Yes. You mentioned that one before.
I think I have mentioned that before.
Episodes.
And also a very strange man who was pretty much the model for Woody Allen's film Zelig. I don't know if you saw that, about a man who just appears in slight bits of history all the way through his life, just on the margins.
That's a great idea.
But I thought I could do something like that. You know, forgotten here stories of cricketing history. You know, just odd things that happened in cricket. And there was a couple of cricket things in his book actually.
Oh yeah.
And then I thought, no, it's too much like fucking hard work, so I'm not going to do it. But if we have a mad outcry from messages and from Barbara and from our other couple of listeners, probably Mog, then I might consider it. But if you want just sort of small snippets of forgotten bits of cricket history, maybe we could put that in as a segment.
Okay.
Well, you could have my story about how I single-handedly changed the course of English cricket history by shouting at Darren Gough. Do you want that one in there?
Yeah, you have mentioned that. Yeah,
a few times. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
If that was on Wikipedia, there would be a big tag next to it saying citation required.
Yeah.
We need some third-party evidence of that.
I could get my mate Baz to do it.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say his mate Baz is probably going to confirm, isn't he?
In David Townsend's book about the history of Irish cricket, he maintains absolutely that he insisted to the Irish captain in a 4 or 5 day game that they were playing about 20 years ago that they should declare behind and they win the game that way. And in the end, it happened. He claims it happened. So he's claiming to have had a major part in Ireland's rise to Test cricket. But whether that's true or not, I don't know.
No citation.
Well, yeah, he does actually have some Irish people who agree with him that it did happen. So it's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, it is a bit. I didn't like that, man.
But Bear,
I haven't.
What have you seen in the papers this week?
Well, this one is, this goes straight to the Bear's heart, and it says experts believe that Jesus may have used cannabis oil to perform his miracles.
I'm not an expert on these kind of substances. Do they make you walk on water?
I was going to say.
Well, no.
That's like a cold custard.
However,
loaves, fishes.
Not that I know anything about the Bible, of course, but of course there's a lot of talk about anointing oil, and apparently in where is it? In Exodus 30, take the following fine spices: 500 shekels worth of liquid myrrh, half as much of fragrant cinnamon, 250 shekels of Canare balsam, and 500 shekels of cassia. And people think that Canare balsam is now cannabis oil. So of course, the cannabis people are on it, saying legalize it. Jesus is into it.
So
yeah, but they didn't actually ingest that. They just burnt it.
Well, no, yeah, but you can absorb it through the skin. You still get high. It'd be good stuff.
So what you're saying is that Lazarus wasn't cured; he was just stoned.
Yes.
He wasn't dead. He was just. In fact, Jesus had a bit too much. He went for a lie down, and 3 days later he got up.
But of course,
I don't want to undermine the whole history of the Christian church.
We thought you were dead.
Well, exactly. I was just a bit stoned, man. I took too much.
Oh,
Jesus, needed a rest.
Yeah. The cookies were too strong. But yeah, weed has been around since. It's a plant. It's been around forever. People probably used it. I like this one too. Penguins might be aliens. Speculations emerged that penguins may be aliens. Scientists found traces of a chemical from Venus in their droppings. How do you like that one?
And the one below looking for in their droppings.
And have you got any more on that? I'm quite interested to.
Well, no, they're only experts are struggling to explain how phosphine exists on Earth, 38 million miles away from Venus, but they found it in penguin droppings.
Probably came over in a meteor. Actually, that's what normally stuff comes from space.
Yeah, maybe you might find it in the odd penguin.
Bastards.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
stuff falls from the sky. Like, yum, yum, yum. We'll have.
They don't do very much. Penguins. Have you ever seen penguins in the wild?
Not in the wild. No.
Not in the wild. No.
Well, I've seen them in Cape Town as at Boulders Beach, where they congregate. They just sort of stand there and don't do very much at all. But
huddling for warmth.
But this one I really like. Rhino study wins Ig Nobel Award, which is kind of pointless science. Yeah. Studies have discovered that it's safer to transport a rhinoceros upside down. And that beards may be an evolutionary development to help protect men's faces from punches.
Has it worked for you too?
I don't know. I haven't been punched for a while.
Well, then it's working.
Yeah, well,
I call that science.
Not even the threat of a punch.
No.
People won't come near me.
Well, we found the next opponent for Tyson Fury. He's going in with a bear or with some of the great beers that we have in Guerilla cricket. Sock and now Hendo and what's his name? That annoying bloke from Woy Pom. He's got a beard and a half, hasn't he? And Mog. We should put them all in the boxing ring, see whether it works.
Well, you could do. Softens the blow, I imagine. But the last one, I like this. Woman bombarded with calls after number appears in Squid Game. Have you watched Squid Game on Netflix? Ultra-violent Korean stuff.
Heard a lot about it recently.
Well, yeah, in it, basically, he plays this game, but there's a card on it that he has to ring the number, and the number's on screen. And apparently, people have been ringing that number, and this poor woman in Korea it's her number. They probably made it up.
That's why in American
randomly.
shows it was always 555 was the area code, because that doesn't exist.
There's normally a protocol, isn't there? I'm sure the same.
Oh, it's got to be a protocol.
There's got to be a protocol. In UK's things, it'll be, I don't know, 07111, which doesn't exist as a number.
Let me just try that.
Yeah.
You would have thought so, and even when you don't see it, because if the tones are actually numbers in their own right, aren't they? Because if you heard the tones, you could theoretically play that down your phone, and it would call a number.
Yeah. I suppose these days you don't always hear those tones, do you?
No.
Same tone on every number now.
Touch screen. Yeah. Because in the older days, with the old, dialy circular ones, you could tell by the number of clicks, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, and if they, you remember, they used to have locks on phones. People would put a little jam in the number one, so you couldn't do it. But you could actually still use the phone by pressing the clicker very quickly.
Yes.
If you pressed it 5 times, it would do the number
Dial
5.
Yeah.
How much time did you spend in phone boxes as a young child?
No, well, I do remember when I was abroad, friends of mine had found a phone box which wasn't working somewhere near them, where the money came out the bottom, and they were phoning internationally, and they were just driving me mad. They were just calling me every day because they were calling this for nothing. So after a while, I was saying, look, you've got nothing to say, mate. Just,
It's fun.
Just back off a bit. But I realise it's free. But well, those good stories, I have to say, good stories. We don't have to vote on them because it's not Grubby's segment, and we don't have vote rigging like Grubby's did.
Not everything's a competition.
No, should be though. Right. Well, we are looking forward, he says, with metaphorical 2-finger things, to the World T20 Finals, which start
Sunday.
So imminently, with a sort of a preliminary tournament with a bunch of teams like who?
Scotland,
Exactly.
Ireland, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh are in there.
Does it start on Sunday, Bear? I thought it
Starts
started
on Sunday, apparently.
a day or two before.
No. Well, the IPL finishes on Friday, and the World Cup starts on Sunday.
That was convenient.
Yeah.
Quick change of shirts.
Yeah, exactly. Off you go. Who else is there? Papua New Guinea's in there.
Oh yes, got to support the Paps.
I always think of Geraint
Netherlands.
Jones. Geraint Jones actually played with them till a couple of years ago, didn't he?
Yeah, he was, wasn't he? Yeah, is he still involved in the setup there?
He's still better than Bear.
Involved in the setup. I think he's still involved in the setup. I'm not sure. I think so. I think he's coach, isn't he?
But yeah, I mean, he is legitimately Papua New Guinea. And to be fair to Papua New Guinea, I think pretty much all their team are locals. I don't think they have a large non-indigenous population in Papua New Guinea. So it's what we like to see with international teams, to be fair. I mean, you don't watch, but you hear about these sort of European cricket tournaments that are going on, with Austria playing Luxembourg, and you look down the list of names and you think, they don't sound all that Luxembourgeois, do they? Particularly, except for one bloke called Finch Fletchley or something, and the rest of them.
That's a character from Harry Potter as well,
Yes, it is. Yes,
Justin Finch
there's usually
Fletchley.
one posh English name in there and a bunch of subcontinental names. But no, PNG are all locals. There was a time when the Dutch team were all locals. It's a bit less so now.
Right. So the teams in qualifying.
Oman?
Netherlands. Yes. Well, because they're
Hosting. Yeah.
Well, they are hosting, but I presume that's only now, isn't it? Because wasn't it supposed to be in India anyway? But yeah, they must have qualified. Yeah. Netherlands, Papua New Guinea, Ireland, Namibia, Scotland, and Oman, plus Bangladesh and Sri Lanka.
That's a good point, actually. When UAE and Oman agreed to take over hosting duties,
said, "Well, you've got to find us." Do
you think Oman said, by the way, if we qualify for this, and there are people going, "I don't think so," and this, I think you might find we have.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll put another one in. We'll fit in another round to qualify. Did you know Oman was bigger than the United Kingdom? That came as something as a surprise to me, I have to say.
No, I thought it was one of those tiny little emirates.
No, it's actually quite a bigish country.
It doesn't surprise me that
it's
much.
It's a bit desert.
Because it's very small where we live.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, it's not, it's bigger than lots of countries. But, Oman is not a Qatari-sized dot, let's put it that way.
Don't get me started on what's happening in this country. Fucking hell.
And on that point, ladies and gentlemen,
that's the end of the show.
we hope you've enjoyed this download from Guerilla Cricket, and you'll be tuning in for the World T20 preliminary stages starting as early as Sunday the
18th.
Sunday 18th.
And you
one
can catch us.
One of the Bear and Knackle will have to be there for every single
17th.
game.
It's the 17th.
Yeah.
Are we getting
I'm not
dates
on Sunday. I'm doing a football with Nate on Sunday, so I'm not doing that.
Right, so you don't have to listen to that one, but do tune in when all the good commentators are on, as it'll warm up during the competition until the big names come in, and that's true of the teams in the competition also. And apart from that, have we got anything else that we want to say?
No.
No.
Doodle pip. That's it, isn't it?
There's no point shaking your head, Grubby. They can't hear that.
Yeah, it's true.
But I've got to
They
do
can hear
something.
your heavy breathing, but they can't hear your head shaking.
I've got to do something while I'm thinking.
And we'll be back. Let's try and do it a bit more promptly next time. Maybe in about 4 weeks' time. Maybe
Within
just
the
after
month.
Maybe we should try and actually do one once a month.
Yeah. Yeah, we could. I mean, it's not as though we need stuff to talk about. We just Google random shit, don't we?
Exactly. It's quite easy.
You've been all rigid and organised there. You've changed.
Yeah. Well, it says a lot about us too that Bear's the most organised in this.
Well,
podcast.
didn't I suggest this about a week and a half ago? It took us this long to get a
every so
time
often
where we
something
could
goes,
all
"Let's do
actually
a
get
pod,"
on.
and then nothing happens for a few weeks.
Well, see, the problem I have is the missus works one week. She works till 4 in the afternoon, and the other week she works till 8. She doesn't go until 8:30. So she's doing the 8:30 thing.
Is the theme tune playing over this, by the way?
No, I don't know. I'm quite happy to do it before she gets home, but not after she gets home. And then this week she finished at 4, so do it late at night. It's fine. Anyway, that's boring.
You're listening to Domestic Arrangements of the Bear. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and hopefully we'll be back in a few weeks. We didn't introduce ourselves at the beginning, so if you'd like to say goodbye and who you are, and they've waited this far to find out who's talking in this podcast.
Do you think they've waited this long? Anyway, it's goodbye from me, the Bear.
It's goodbye from me, not Fred.
It's goodbye from me, Grubby. Goodbye.
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 And we're done.
Oh, so that was the innings of Brendan McCullum. Scores lots of fours because he don't like to run them. And here we are waving Brendan McCullum goodbye. Whoa, whoa.